You're 7 years old and your father hands you a wooden staff taller than you are. Not a toy, not a game, a weapon. He doesn't smile, he doesn't explain. He just says, again. You don't know it yet, but you're being raised inside the most feared bloodline of swordsmen in Japan. And in 6 years, you're going to kill a grown man with your bare hands and a stick. No one's going to stop you. No one's going to save you, because in the world you were born into, the only rule that matters is this one: win or die. Here's what nobody tells you about becoming Miyamoto Musashi. You grow up watching your father, Shinmen Munisai, move through the air like the air owes him something. He fights with a sword in one hand and a yuta, a metal truncheon, in the other, and men twice his size hit the ground before they understand what happened. You watch him from the doorway of the training hall, barefoot, cold, transfixed. You want that. You want to be feared like that. But your father's not a warm man. He doesn't hug you after practice. He corrects your grip. He corrects your stance. He corrects the way you breathe. He corrects the angle of your elbow mid-swing, and he does it by tapping you with the flat of a blade, not by asking nicely. You learn early that love in this house looks like discipline, and discipline looks like bruises you don't talk about at dinner. Eventually, you find yourself living at a temple, under the roof of your Uncle Doran, a Buddhist priest who teaches you to read and to sit still, two things that don't come naturally to a boy who was born gripping a stick like a sword. You're 13 years old when the notice appears in the village. A traveling swordsman named Arima Kihei has posted a public challenge. He's a serious fighter, trained in the Kashima Shinto-ryu style, the kind of man who travels from town to town looking for someone to humiliate in front of a crowd. You read the notice. You feel something hot climb up the back of your neck. You don't think, you grab a brush, and you write your own name on the challenge as the man who accepts. By the time Dorin finds out, it's already done. Word's already reached Arima Kihei that a 13-year-old boy has signed himself up to fight him. Dorin's furious, not at you, at himself for taking his eyes off you for one afternoon. He rushes to find Kihei, begging him to withdraw the challenge. He's a child, Dorin says. He doesn't understand what he's done. Kihei laughs in his face. He'll withdraw it, but only if the boy comes to the dueling ground and apologizes in front of everyone who's already heard the rumor. You go. Dorin walks beside you the whole way, still rehearsing the apology he's going to give on your behalf, still hoping this ends with words instead of blood. You reach the dueling ground. A crowd's gathered. Villagers, half expecting a joke, half expecting a tragedy. Dorin steps forward, opening his mouth to speak the apology that'll save your life. You don't let him finish. You're already moving. Bow staff in your hands, feet already crossing the last stretch of dirt between you and Arima Kihei before your uncle's sentence is even complete. Kihei barely has time to register that the apology isn't coming. He draws a wakizashi, a short sword, as you close the distance. Everything after that happens too fast for the crowd to fully process. You knock him down with the staff, and then you're on top of him, and you don't stop when he goes still. You beat Arima Kihei to death in front of the entire village. The crowd doesn't cheer. Nobody cheers. There's just silence, and the sound of your own breathing, and a boy standing over a dead man with a bloody staff still in his hands. That night, you don't sleep. You keep seeing it. The moment he fell, the moment it was over, the strange stillness of a man who'd been moving and then wasn't. But underneath the horror, there's something else too. Something quieter, something that scares you more than the killing did. You didn't feel like you lost anything. You felt like you'd found something. 3 years later, at 16, you fight again. A swordsman named Tadashima Akiyama from Tajima province. You win that one too. Somewhere around this time, you leave your home village behind for good. You don't have a plan. You have a staff, a sword, and a growing certainty that you were built for exactly one thing. Legend says that around this same period, you may have marched into the largest battle of the age, the Great Clash at Sekigahara. One teenage swordsman among tens of thousands on the losing side, walking away from a slaughter that swallowed whole armies. What's certain is this. Somewhere in those chaotic years, you learned that surviving a battlefield and winning a duel aren't the same skill, and you were about to become the greatest the world had ever seen at the second one. You arrive in Kyoto around age 19, and Kyoto belongs, in the world of the sword, to one family. The Yoshioka clan. Their school's prestigious, their name respected, their master feared. You walk in as a nobody with a reputation only whispered about outside the city. You leave as the reason their name means nothing anymore. The first duels against Yoshioka Seijuro himself, master of the school. You bring a wooden sword, he brings his full reputation. It doesn't matter. You strike his shoulder, he goes down, and his arm's never the same again. The great master of the Yoshioka school, crippled by a bokken in the hands of a stranger. The clan doesn't accept it. Seijuro's brother Yoshioka Denshichiro challenges you next, and this time there's no wooden lesson to be taught. This time you kill him. 2 duels, 2 Yoshioka masters, 1 crippled, 1 dead. The clan's name is bleeding out in public, and everyone in Kyoto knows it, so they put forward 1 more challenger. You arrive at the plain below Ichijoji Temple expecting a swordsman. What you get is a boy, Yoshioka Matashichiro, 12 years old, Seijuro's own son, dressed up and pushed forward as the last hope of a broken family because there's no one else left willing to face you. You look at this child, and for one moment, something in you hesitates. You think of yourself at 13, staff in your hands, crossing a dueling ground before your uncle could finish an apology. You think about how nobody stopped you either. Nobody stops this either. The duel ends the way all your duels end. The Yoshioka name that once controlled swordsmanship in the capital collapses into irrelevance in a single afternoon, and you walk away from Ichijoji as the boy who ended it. Rumors follow you out of the city, that it wasn't 3 duels but 1 impossible ambush, dozens of Yoshioka swordsmen surrounding you at once, and you cutting through all of them alone. You hear these stories in taverns, embellished a little more each time. You never correct them. A legend that grows on its own is a weapon you don't have to swing. By the time you're around 30, everyone in Japan who cares about swords knows 2 names, yours and Sasaki Kojiro's. They call him the demon of the western provinces. He fights with a nodachi longer than most men are tall, a blade nicknamed Monohoshizao, the drying pole, because it's long enough to hang laundry on. He's fast, he's precise, he's never lost. The duel's arranged for a small island in the straits between Honshu and Kyushu. No name yet. Just water and rock, and a morning waiting to happen. You do something strange the night before. While the boatman rows you toward the island, you sit in the bottom of the boat with a spare oar across your knees, and you start carving. Long, careful strokes, shaving the wood down into the shape of a blade. By the time the island comes into view, you're holding a sword that isn't a sword at all. A length of oar, still smelling of salt water, blunt enough to break bone and useless for drawing blood cleanly. Then you make the boat slow down. You let the sun climb higher. You let the morning stretch out long past when you were expected. Somewhere on that shore, Sasaki Kojiro is standing in the heat, waiting, his patience burning down like a fuse, and every extra minute you take is a blade you're driving into his composure before you've even arrived. When you finally step off the boat, or sword in hand, the look on his face tells you the psychological fight's already half won. He draws his blade. In his fury, he throws his scabbard aside into the surf. You watch it float away, and something in you goes very calm. You've already lost, you say, or maybe you only think it. A man who discards his sheath has already decided he isn't going home. The fight itself barely lasts long enough to describe. Kojiro moves first. You move faster. Wood connects with something final, and the demon of the western provinces goes down onto the sand and doesn't get up. You stand over him the same way you stood over Arima Kihei 17 years earlier, except this time there's no shaking in your hands. This time you feel nothing but the wind, and the tide, and the total silence of a legend finishing itself. They rename the island after his fighting style so that every mention of your greatest victory forever carries his name too. You never once complain about that. Perhaps it's the closest thing to respect you know how to give. The years blur into dozens of duels after that. Some say over 60 in total, across a lifetime, and not one of them ends with you on the ground. You develop a way of fighting nobody's tried before. A sword in each hand, the long blade and the short one, moving together like they share one mind. People call it strange at first, then they call it Nitan Ichiryu, the school of 2 heavens as one, and stop laughing. But winning 60 duels doesn't fill a house. You never marry, you never have a son of your own blood. Instead, you adopt first a boy named Mikinosuke, then later a boy named Iori, and something in you that has spent its whole life perfecting the art of ending other men's lives quietly rearranges itself around the strange, unfamiliar work of raising them. You're not a gentle teacher, but you're a present one, and perhaps that's enough. You're in your 50s when the call comes for the Shimabara Rebellion. You go not as a teenage prodigy chasing a reputation this time, but as an old master standing beside soldiers half his age. Somewhere in the chaos of that siege, a thrown rock finds you, and for the first time in your life, you feel your own mortality in a way that no swordsman's blade ever managed. Your adopted son Iori fights in that same war and comes through it with his own name finally starting to mean something. You watch him from a distance, and you feel something you don't have a word for yet. Something that might, in another man, simply be called pride. You're close to 60 when you finally stop moving. You climb into a cave called Reigando, and you sit down inside the silence you spent your whole life running from. There's no opponent here, no crowd, no name to defend, just you, a brush, and everything you've never had time to say out loud. You write it all down, every principle, every hard-earned truth about timing and distance, and the empty space between 2 men about to decide which one keeps breathing. You call it the Book of Five Rings, and somewhere in its pages you write the truest sentence of your whole life: that the sword and the self are never really two different things. You give it to your student Terao, and you tell him to keep it safe, to keep teaching what you taught him, long after your name stops being a threat and starts being a memory. A week later, you're gone. 60-some years, and not one man ever put you on the ground. Not Arima Kihei, not the Yoshioka clan, not the demon of the western provinces with his drying pole sword. You beat all of them, and the only thing that ever finally caught up to you was time itself, which, if you think about it, is the one opponent every swordsman eventually loses to, and the only one that was never really a loss at all. Somewhere, a boy's still standing in a doorway, watching his father move through the air like it owes him something. Somewhere, that boy's still deciding whether to write his name on a challenge he has no business accepting. Every generation, there's another one like him. If stories like this, and the ones about the people who decided fear was simply not going to be part of their life, are the kind of thing you want more of, stay close. There are a lot more lives like this one worth living, even just for 20 minutes at a time.